What's something unexplainable that you've experienced? I was stopped for the night at a truck stop in the desert, 60 miles east of El Paso, Texas. This truck stop only has lights around the store and fuel pumps. The truck parking area is only lit by any headlights that are left on. I get to bed at about 2200 hours thinking it'll be a nice quiet night. At around 2:30 I wake up to a tapping on my truck, like someone was trying to wake me up. I ignore it and try to go back to sleep, but the tapping gets louder and louder and eventually turns into the sound similar to someone beating their hand on my door and cab. I get out of bed and open the curtains to the side I heard the sound coming from, and there was nothing there. I opened the curtains on the other side, and nothing there either. There was no trucks on either side of me. So I throw my shoes on, grab my machete and flashlight and go outside to see what the hell was going on. There was nothing, no footprints, no paw prints, absolutely nothing there. I get back in my truck and turn in my side markers, so I'm somewhat illuminated. Close the doors, lock them, and run my seatbelts through the door handle and buckle them in, to add essentially another lock to both doors. I go back to bed, and wake up at 0630. The sun is starting to come out, so I go inside for some coffee and breakfast before heading out. Other truck drivers were in there, and experienced the same thing I did that night, with no answers as to what it was. I finished my breakfast and noped the fuck out of there. One time I was at the gas station filling my car up at night time and there was a hospital across the road. A man with no shirt on wearing proper suit pants and formal leather shoes ran from the dark across the road into the gas station. He was in there for 5 minutes then sprinted back into the dark. I walk in to pay for my gas and the guy serving tells me that the random guy in the suit pants paid for my $50 tank of gas. I had so many questions. I bought one pair of Bluetooth earbuds about 6 months ago. I received one pair. About 4 months ago, I went to use them and they wouldn't auto-connect to my phone. Weird. I paired them and there were 2 pairs now. Later I found my other pair sitting on my desk. I've been quarantining alone. No idea where the extra set came from. When I was around 9 years old I found 2 plush toys that looked like black cats. They were second-hand and were the only 2 in the shop. I am a cat freak and adored them, but so did my younger siblings, twins. My mum just gave them to my siblings and told me to stop whining. I was livid. I had bought them for myself with change I had buskied for. So unfair. Then, out of nowhere a third cat appeared. Exact match. My and my older sister even went back to the shop and the owner just thought we were crazy. There definitely never was a third cat. To this day, I have no idea how that happened. My mom isn't the thoughtful kind and she kind of always acted like a dick when I was upset. So I am 100% sure she didn't try and get one for me to cheer me up or whatever. Recently, I was on the couch watching something and I heard a crash from my washer and dryer room. My cat also shot up and looked in the direction of the door. It sounded like a broom fell over, or maybe one of the plastic tubs. Freaked me out as I already don't really like that room in the first place. Plus it was very late at night and I live alone. Also because of the pull-string door that leads to the creepy-ass attic. Decided I was not going to be like every idiot in a horror movie and investigate what the noise was. I literally sat there on my couch for hours. The next day, I decided I had enough courage to take a peek and literally saw nothing touched. Both brooms were still propped up against the wall. All the plastic tubs were sitting perfectly. I have no idea what that noise was and I don't really care to find out. I love that you didn't check it out. I am the same way. Ghosts and poltergeists would be so disappointed with me because I would never play alone. As a kid, I had an imaginary friend who I would play with a lot. I had few, real, friends, but I was also more of an outcast in daycare and kindergarten, so sometimes that imaginary friend was all I had. My mother said I'd always describe him as very similar looking. When I was around preschool age, my mother said we needed to talk about my friend and I said that I'm fine with keeping Joshua around because I was scared of starting school alone. Her face just froze in shock and she never brought it up again. I didn't realize why until my grandma explained years later that I had a twin brother who didn't make it and my parents were planning on naming him Joshua. The only logical explanation I have is that I picked it up when I was very little, but my grandma said that my parents literally never talked about it because they didn't cope well with the loss at all. It's still very strange. A few weeks before my granddad died in April, I started wearing 2 rings I had inherited from a family member on a chain around my neck. I've had them for years and always wear them when I feel like I need a bit of luck or support. Makes me feel as if someone is looking out for me even though I don't really believe in the afterlife or the supernatural. I knew he was sick, so I'd not long started wearing them again. Only I'd had to put them on a chain this time because the uniform policy in work meant I couldn't wear them as I usually did on my finger. The clasp on the chain can be quite stiff to open, so I just throw it over my head with the rings attached because it's long enough to not have to open. So the rings and the chain had been together for a few weeks at this point without me ever opening the clasp, because there was no need. So I was in work with another colleague about 2 feet away from me. I had the rings tucked well down my shirt, hanging right around heart level, my uniform zipped up over them, a plastic apron and my gloves on. I'm a nurse. I was busy doing something so my hands weren't anywhere near the rings, and I wasn't even thinking about them. There wasn't any way I could have touched them or got them caught on anything. Then I felt something cold touch my stomach, and the next thing I knew, one of the rings had dropped onto the floor. I was confused at how it had happened and thought maybe the chain had broken, even though it's quite sturdy, and didn't want to lose it. So I took my apron and gloves off and pulled the chain out of my shirt. The chain was intact and still clasped tightly together, and the other ring was still on it. So somehow, one ring had come cleanly off the chain without the other one falling off, and with the chain still clasped together. My colleague was just staring at me like, what a fact. And I'm not really a believer in the supernatural, like I said, so I just cracked a joke saying, I hope that wasn't a sign or someone trying to tell me something, and laughed it off. Not 5 minutes later, I got the call to say my granddad had deteriorated and I needed to come home. I left work that day to care for him, and 2 weeks later he died. I know there's got to be an explanation for it, but part of me doesn't want to know it because the mystery makes me feel like maybe I was actually being looked out for. I wear the rings on my finger now because I can't shake the feeling that there was something more to that little mystery than the logical side of my brain wants to believe. And fuck the uniform policy. If anyone calls me out on it, I'll tell them a ghost told me to wear them. When I was 5 months pregnant with my son, I had received a check and I was trying to use it to open a bank account. After we cashed it, we planned on eating at the Denny's next door. For some reason the check wasn't able to be verified, so we went to another bank and had no issue. We ate at a different restaurant as we were short on time. Unbeknownst to us, that Denny's we were going to eat at had a shooter who shot and killed a few people, including a woman who was 5 months pregnant at the same time we were going to eat. We found out a day later, and am still grateful that something prevented us from going. I feel awful for the people there. This was about 18 years ago. About 9 years ago, I was searching our file cabinet for a document I needed. I had piles of papers all over the bed, searched for an hour, meticulously. Could not find it. Suddenly, the TV across the room, which is not on, makes a clicking noise. I stop what I'm doing, look up and over at the TV. I see nothing out of the ordinary, so I turn back to the pile of papers, and the document I had been searching for is right on top, like it was placed there. I looked up, said thank you, and put away the papers I didn't need. I was 9 years old and I had a dream that I got home from a friend's house, and as I opened the door, out of the corner of my eye I see a gray rat scamper along the side of my house, so I stand there a second just watching it. Then I look down and a rattlesnake was right next to my leg. Of course I panic and step back, but the snake strikes and bites my leg. I scream and roll around and my leg burns. Even in the dream it burned. My father comes out and sees me on the ground and I tell him I was bit by a rattlesnake. He rushes me to the hospital. Time gets real malleable, and I don't remember traveling to the hospital or checking in. But I end up on a bed and very distinctly getting a couple doses of antivenom, but it is too late. I die, and I see my mother crying while holding my hand. I watch for a few minutes, then I wake up. Weird-ass nightmare, right? But nothing to freak about. So I go about my day, play with my friends, and whatnot. When I was walking home that evening, I just randomly thought about my dream, so I stopped a bit away from the door and actually looked around where the snake was in the dream. Motherfucker was exactly where I dreamt he was and basically staring at me, but never does rattle. Then a fucking rat goes darting down the side of my house. I change course and go to the front door instead. I tell my dad about the snake. He goes out and kills it with a shovel. I haven't had another dream that vivid of the future since. Shit still freaks me out though. What's something unexplainable that you've experienced? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.